As we talked about the various aspects of the front office department, let us start in understanding about the guest operator service. Now, basically, the most general function or the vital role of the guest operator service is to answer all calls received at the telephone central, and they have to maintain the client standards as well as the telephone etiquette. At the same time, providing all guests with the service according to the high standards. And they also have to liaise with other departments on any issues or changes or other requests. Now, let us understand the different equipments that are used. Some of the equipments include PABX, which is a private automatic branch exchange, both for internal and external use. Now, internally, yes. For example, if a guest is trying to reach an in-house guest is trying to connect with the front office department or is trying to call the reception, if the line is busy, then the call is automatically, by default, it's transferred to the guest operator service or the telephones, as we may call it. Now, the telephones department, the guest operator service representative answers the call, maintains the telephone standards, and at the same time hears the guest out clearly, not to understand his or her needs or any service requests, taking a note of the same and passing on the information to the relevant department. Here, in this case, I'm referring to the reception. If the guest is not being able to contact the reception, if the line is coming engaged, then automatically the guest operator service would be the first point of contact. Now, even for external use, again, if if a third party or a known person of the guest is of a particular in-house guest, he's trying to contact the guest, he or her, he or she, they're trying to contact the guest, the in-house guest, by calling from outside or any other sources. However, if they're trying to contact the guest, the first point of contact would be the guest operator service. Now, say if, for instance, someone is calling from outside and he wants to speak to one of the in-house guests that are there in the hotel. So then again, it can be used for external use as well. Now again, typical guest operator service system would include the telephone system and headphones, as we are all aware. It may also include certain softwares that are particularly adopted by certain hotels. And at the same time, a guest operator service would also have access to the hotel property management systems such as Micros, Opera, or Oracle Opera, which is very, very widely and commonly used across various hotels in the world. So yes, they have access to the hotel PMS, and at the same time, they have access to other softwares that I will be talking about, or other avenues as well. Now, the typical functions include security. Now, in the case, as I was talking about earlier, for external use, if a particular person from outside the hotel is trying to contact a given particular in-house guest, then the first point of contact would be the guest operator service. And at the same time, the guest operator service representative would again maintain the telephone standards, which are answering the phone within 3 rings or 10 seconds with an appropriate greeting. Now, these are typical standards that are followed by uh, various hotels. And if the call was put on hold, then the representative must ask permission of the caller to do so. And if it does not, Exceed 30 seconds, then a callback should be offered. Now, in this case, again, now the caller is trying to contact an in-house guest. Now, security is the most important aspect over here because the guest operator representative must take into consideration the consent of the guest. Now, even while putting the call on hold for the caller, the guest operator representative would directly call the guest in his or her room and inform them that so and so person is calling and asking for them and would like to speak to them. Then, based on the consent and the permission of the guest operator service would accordingly allow the two to connect, would transfer, would in fact connect, merge the calls accordingly to the guest room and the caller. Yes, again, making public announcements is very important. Now, for example, if there are, say, certain renovations or, say, fumigations of public areas within a stipulated time frame. Now, for example, if the lobby is being disinfected or fumigated, now again, given the COVID-19 scenario, then it is the responsibility of the guest operator service to call every in-house guest and inform them that, say, from 5 p.m. to 6 p.m., for example, to avoid going to the reception area because it is being fumigated and disinfected. So accordingly, public announcements and even informing guests of certain repairs and maintenance or certain actions that are being taken for hygiene and cleanliness in this case. So this again is very important. The public announcements is one of the key roles. Then again, handling calls, they have to be fluent in English and in the native language of a given particular guest. That is of course preferable. At the same time, it is also important to multitask in this case. Now again, there may not be just one guest operator service representative. There may be many, and people usually in the hotel industry, they work in shifts. So again, they must be very familiar with the roles. They must be very familiar with the etiquette standards and the telephone standards. These are very vital aspects in this regard. Again, they have to maintain a very positive attitude and at the same time be professional and friendly while taking guest requests and making a note of the same and informing the relevant departments and again offering a call back to the guest saying that their request has been placed. Now, for example, if a guest is trying to contact the housekeeping department and it is post 8 p.m. Now, in some hotels, the housekeeping department does not work after 6:30. Some hotels, they do not work after 8 p.m. in the evening. So in some cases, it may so happen that the guest is trying to contact the housekeeping but is unable to do so. And the call is automatically transferred to the guest operator's representative. So accordingly, the guest operator representative would take the request, say 4 bottles of water. The guest is requesting for 4 bottles of water. So the guest operator's representative would take a note of the request and inform a housekeeping personnel or even the rooms division department accordingly. And therefore the request could be met and made note of and fulfilled. And again, offering a call back to the guest as part of a typical standard, saying that the request has been fulfilled. Now, again, transferring calls to relevant departments. Now, this is a very common phenomena. Now, as part of the guest operator service representative's role, if, for example, the front office associate or housekeeping associate is trying to connect to the engineering department, however, he or she, they are unable to do so. Therefore, Again, by default, the guest operator service will be the first point of contact to bridge the gap between the two departments accordingly. So usually in hotel rooms as well, going back to equipments, hotel rooms as well have got an internal landline with all the emergency numbers, with the relevant department numbers, for example, room service or reception or bell desk or concierge. So it's all been fed into the phone, housekeeping, etc. So again, some phones have also been configured in such a manner that upon lifting the receiver, the call gets automatically transferred to the guest operator service. So these depend on hotels to hotels, and again, there's no fixed configuration for the same. However, the basic standards are pretty much the same. Then again, managing a multi-line telephone system, as I mentioned earlier, transferring calls to relevant departments and making public announcements, handling calls, service requests. So again, multitasking is very important in this case. Then taking out guest details. Then taking out guest details and printing registration cards is very important, because taking a note of the guest details is very important. And printing registration cards again. Now, usually the front office department, the back office section works hand in hand with the telephones department, whereby the guest operator service has access to the hotel's property management system, an Opera system, which is a very convenient platform to work in. And therefore, it is also important to take a note of the guest reservations. Take a note of the guest reservations and print out the reg cards accordingly. Say, for example, if it's an Indian guest, then again, printing out the driver's license or an Aadhaar card or any other documentation proof is essential. At the same time, printing out the registration cards. And also, now what most hotels have done is to also print out a COVID declaration form. So these three things are a must upon check-in, and all these are prepared and stapled together for the guests, so that when the guest checks into the hotel, it'll be easier to make a note of the details accordingly. And it also ensures that there's smoother operation of service. Now coming to C forms. Now this is applicable for international guests. Now it's important for us to understand that, say, for example, in India, in this case, I'm referring to India, and usually C forms are designed for collecting prerequisite information of foreigner guests whose bookings and accommodations have been made in a given particular hotel. This is beneficial because it helps in identifying legal arrivals of foreigner guests. And it's important to keep information through this facility. So now once a reference has been made, a booking has been made, then for international guests, of course, a valid passport is required, as well as the visa issue and expiry dates respectively. So the guest operator service is responsible for preparing C forms for these guests, and keeping a tab and making a note and printing out the passport details as well as the relevant visa details for the guests upon arrivals. And one copy must be submitted to the government. In this situation, the government body is known as the Foreign Regional Registration Office, FRRO. So one copy of the C form should be submitted with the FRRO, and another copy must be submitted to the police station, the local police station, within a period of 24 hours. So again, C-forms is very important, and at the same time, for security purposes, it is highly essential to submit these copies with the FRRO as well as the local police station. Now moving on to reservations. Now in the front office department, as I had previously mentioned, that the process begins right from reservations till the time the guest checks into the hotel. And ultimately, the guest checks out, of course, after his or her period of stay. And there are many ways guests can make reservations, either through a hotel's website or through registered OTAs known as online travel agents. Online booking engines would be Expedia. Online travel agents would be booking.com and GoIbibo, Make My Trip, Traveloka, etc. These are very, very commonly used online travel agent platforms that are used by guests to make reservations. Booking.com. And then after their stay experience has been satisfactory, guests can always put in a word on TripAdvisor, which again is very influential. Now, again, like as I was mentioning before, if a direct reservation is made from the hotel's website, in this case, the first point of contact is the centralized reservation system, as a reservations associate or representative from the hotel would directly deal with the guest and understand his or her requirements. And there are certain standards that are usually followed for the same. The required skills would be knowing everything about the hotel, its amenities. So therefore, it's important to have a proper product knowledge, strategic upselling, because it's important to actively listen to the guest, because there are again different types of clientele that the hotel is catering to. And strategic upselling would involve, say, for example, if a guest is looking at booking, say, 5 deluxe rooms for a particular event, if it's a if it's for marriage guests, if they're probably booking 5 to 6 hotel rooms, in this case it could be deluxe rooms, then the reservations associate could strategically upsell to higher category of rooms. So this again is one of the most important aspects of reservations, that a reservations associate should also maintain the telephone standard. At the same time, strategic upselling is highly essential, because at the end of the day, revenue management practices come into play. And at the end of the day, profit is what most organizations, in this case, even the hotel industry, would seek to achieve in the long run. Now, common requests would again include specific room requirements. Specific room requirements, either it's a smoking or a non-smoking room, certain bed preferences, either they want a pool view or they want a mountain view room, or they want a jungle view room. So again, view plays a very vital role in this regard. Then reservations associate must update arrivals on the property management system. Now, once usually people, hoteliers and hotel associates are familiar with the Opera PMS system, which is very, very popularly used all over the world. So again, it's important to update arrivals on the PMS, because once a reservation has been made, automatically the expected arrivals are fed into the Opera property management system, or the hotel's property management system. In this case, I'm referring to Opera. And it typically, it would look like this. Now say the reservation has been made, and once the guest has checked in, then all the details would be filled in accordingly. Like for example, the date of arrival, the date of departure, the number of nights, the number of adults, number of rooms, room type, room category, rate code, again daily, room rate. So this is a typical example. Now there are different packages also, but again at the same time, this is for us to have a clear understanding, because Opera is the most widely used platform for most hotels across the world. So this is what a typical reservation window looks like in the Opera system. And again, it's also important for the reservations associate, as I mentioned before, it's important for them to coordinate with the back office or telephones department for printing out registration cards accordingly. And again, everyone has to be on the same page, hence resulting in smoother operations. Now, displacement analysis. Now, this is a very vital aspect of revenue management that every revenue manager must consider before making his or her decision, managing bookings and channelizing and optimizing. So, displacement analysis would involve making the most reasonable choice and the best decision upon selecting one group over another. Now, for example, there could be two different groups coming in, or two different groups who are wanting to make reservations. Now, I'm taking an example in quantitative terms. For example, one group, say the first group, is consists of 10 people and they are booking 10 rooms, and they may want to book 10 deluxe rooms or base category rooms. On the other hand, there may also be another group who's wanting to make a reservation at a given hotel, at the same hotel again in question, and they consist of 5 different people, a group of 5 people who would like to stay in 5 different suites. Now again, it is more profitable in this case to allow the group of 5 people to come into the hotel, because they are staying in a relatively higher category of rooms, and they could also be availing of the hotel facilities, thus resulting in more revenue generated from the hotel. On the other hand, a group of 10 people would just probably stay in the deluxe room and may just opt for like a breakfast plan known as a continental plan. So again, these things vary, and a reservation associate must have this experience. And again, they have to consult with the front office manager or the rooms division manager, because in order to make displacement analysis based decisions, a lot of years of experience and expertise is required in the front office and in the reservations department. Because again, human psychology is very important in this case, because ultimately people are dealing with people. So yes, most hotels consider the standard operating procedures during operations. Now, some of the typical standards that are used by hotels would include again the telephone standards, whether the phone call is answered within 3 rings or 10 seconds with an appropriate greeting. It could also if it could also include the fact that if the caller is put on hold, then the employee must ask permission, or the representative, the reservation associate must ask permission to do so. And if it does not exceed 30 seconds, then a callback option must be offered. Then it's also important to make a note of all the guest details, children's names, for example. Then they should clarify spellings wherever required. It's important to consider the type of room categories or the different room categories and rates that are applicable, and um, the different amenities that are there in the hotel, the restaurants. It is essential to confirm the date in and date out. Then at least two or more room categories must be offered to the guests with applicable rates for the same. Now, by applicable rates, again, bar would include the best available rates for the day, and rack rates are the default room rates that are applicable for just walk-in guests. Now, upselling, as I mentioned before, it is very important. At the same time, it is also important to hear the guests' needs and obtain all contact details, and it's important to even explain the cancellation policy that once a reservation has been made, some hotels within 24 hours, if the cancellation is done, then again cancellation fees may or may not be applicable. Now this again depends from hotel to hotel. Then again, preferences, knowing the preferences of the guests is very important, or the potential guests. So if the caller is calling to make a reservation in the hotel, then it's important to understand uh, their preferences, for example, room types, bed types, smoking or non-smoking, the king size, queen size, or twin beds, or number of packs, number of people checking in, the different breakfast plans or meal plans they want to consider. For example, an MAP plan is a modern, modified American plan, which includes breakfast and any meal during the day, the lunch or dinner. An American plan would include all meals. A continental plan would only include breakfast. And last but not the least, a European plan known as an EP would include just the room rate and no meals. And last but not the least, there's a need to obtain a guarantee for the reservation. For example, in some cases, a credit card deposit is also required. And it's you need to offer assistance with even other amenities such as spa and other F&B outlets, or any other gift shops that are there in the hotel, and any other amenities that a potential guest can avail of. So it is important to make the caller understand what the hotel has to offer, and how best, as a reservations associate, I can offer to the guest. In this case, the reservations associate can offer to the guest. Now, this is a typical hotel reservation flowchart. It's important for us to understand that right from the time the guest enters the hotel, if he or she, if they've made a reservation either through the hotel's website or through other OTAs, if yes, then ask for the confirmation number, the reference number, the booking ID, the booking reference number, and ask the guest to provide his or her details regarding his or her stay, and ask for ID proofs or address proofs. If it's an Indian guest, then an Aadhaar card or driver's license would be sufficient. If it's an international guest, then a passport with a relevant visa is again important. And so at the same time, ask for relevant documents from the guest. And again, providing a COVID declaration form is also important. So again, if then we ask for the payment method, whether the guest would like to pay by cash or card. If the guest would like to pay by cash, then again generate a receipt for the same. If it's a card, then ask for the guest credit card details upon check-in, and then swipe and confirm payments accordingly. But again, on the contrary, if rooms are not available and if no reservations have been made by guests, then ask the guest to just provide uh, first, we would apologize to the guest for the inconvenience and suggest a nearby hotel. This is like in a worst case scenario. Otherwise, offer a guest another a different day to check in or a different time to check, and then again it gives a chance for the reservations associate to coordinate with the housekeeping to see if any rooms are lying vacant and clean. Then accordingly rooms may be allotted to guests if reservations are not made. If rooms are not available, then the worst case scenario is applicable. If the rooms are still available, then again ask the guest to provide the details and the ID proof, ask for relevant documents, ask the payment method, and then generate the receipt accordingly. So this is a basic, the typical reservation flowchart that is actually followed and adopted by every hotel in general. Now moving on to central reservation systems. Now it's important to understand that the meaning of central reservation system, it is basically a type of reservation software that is used to maintain and update information of a hotel pertaining to rooms, in this case inventory, rooms and rates, so that the hotels are able to manage guest reservations and bookings and the process around such reservations in real time. Now, a central reservation system is nothing but a computerized reservation software, or CRS, is a technology that lies at the heart of a hotel's functions. It is a typical computerized system that contains the hotel's availability, rates, and inventory data and information, and helps reservation associates to manage bookings and reservations accordingly, and for both online and offline bookings. Now, they are exclusively available to hotel representation companies or CRS providers and hotels themselves. At the same time, it again provides hotel room rates and availability for many different distribution channels, for example, third party websites or even OTAs. Sometimes, like the room rates may differ from OTA to OTA, but there's again a very marginal difference. For example, if Booking.com is offering, say, 14,000 Indian rupees for a luxury category room for one night, this could be the bar rate, the best available rate on the OTA, on this particular OTA, Booking.com. But again, Traveloka is offering, say, 13,500, and Expedia or any other platform is offering 14,500. So there's again like a marginal difference, and the hotel website is again offering 14,225. So these are like marginal differences, and it is according to the guest which OTA or distribution channel that they would booking channel that they would opt for. Now, a CRS is an application with various functionalities to manage a hotel's channels of distribution as well as bookings. So it basically manages and administers room allocations and monitors rates and rooms availability in the given distribution channels, whether through OTAs or through the website. It stores and distributes information on a hotel. For example, the different room categories and the best available rates and the meal plans that are applicable for the same. And ultimately, it is extremely beneficial as it allows reservations and bookings to be checked and booked with a simple search. And at the same time, there's an integration with the hotel's property management system, because once a reservation has been made through the centralized reservation system, it will be automatically updated into the hotel's property management system. Now, these days, Opera, Microsoft Opera, or Oracle Opera systems have this facility and advantage that most hotels use, because it is less time consuming, it is convenient, and at the same time, it is an effective way of operating. Now again, hotels, let's understand the central reservation office. This is how it works. Channelizes hotel bookings, and at the same time, the different properties that are there and their availabilities. Now, for example, if a guest is making a booking via call or email, now again, there could be different categories of guests. Could be an individual, it could be a corporate, it could be OTAs, online travel agents, it could also be MICE, meetings, incentives, conventions, and exhibition clientele. So they make a booking via calls or emails, hotel bookings, and in this case, the OTA would OTA or corporate would make a booking via call or email, say in property one. Now the availability is at the centralization, the central reservations office. The central reservation office would make a note of this booking and inquire from the properties if rooms are available for the particular, if the particular category of room is available for the particular time period or for the given date in question. Now again, once the booking has been confirmed from both ends, then the individual or the corporate would also receive the confirmation booking. At the same time, the hotel property would also receive the booking confirmation. So now this is again like a two-way process, as we can explicitly see in the given diagram.